so thankful for the opportunity of knowing you. You are one of the people very original, that leading the space of change, leader change, and stuff. So we want to know why you picked that field and what makes you interested in doing the things that hardest to a lot of people, right?
Yes,
And learn from you also, Linda.
beautiful. That's a beautiful, thank you for sharing your story. I appreciate that and knowing how you come to be doing this. It's such a wonderful idea, and I'm honored to participate. So, your question, how I came to be doing this work. Um, my studies early on were in art history and education, and my graduate work at Columbia was interdisciplinary arts. And one of the experiences I had in graduate school was a group development workshop where, a team development kind of a thing. And I just got so turned on to the idea of, wow, we're all here and we can all share this. And how do you make this work effectively? That was the first indication of getting into any kind of systems development. And then my first job was with the American Institute of Architects, and I was in charge of continuing education. And the topics that architects and engineers needed at the time were kind of business development, not marketing, but business development and team effectiveness, and then marketing. So we had a lot of consultants come to teach, and there was one teacher that was teaching marketing, and I was responsible for the effectiveness of the programs we were leading. And so I was there while he was teaching. And he was very, very brilliant in marketing, but completely disconnected from the architects who were, I'm a designer, I'm not a marketer, and, just totally out of touch. And so I pulled him aside and I said, you're just not connecting. And he said, I don't know how to do this. Do you? And I said, well, yeah, I have a better idea of how to connect with these people. And he said, good, teach the course with me. And so
Oh,
right there. And so just kind of, fly by night kind of thing. And so we taught that course together. It was very powerful. And he hired me into his firm, and they dubbed me Souls, Roles, and Goals. And so I consulted for several years with architectural and engineering leadership teams to support the development of their organizations and their team effectiveness. And so that was my beginning. And from there, I had learned a lot about organization development by book reading, and then I joined Sun Oil Company at corporate headquarters as an organization development consultant. So that was really getting my hands into this. Years later, my cousin connected with me, and she said, I've been going through old documents in our attic, and I found a poem that you wrote in the seventh grade called Transitions. And I thought, so way back then, I had the seeds of change.
ah,
So funny.
wow.
So I will mention though, at Sun doing organization development work, we had the opportunity to have Richard Beckard, one of the great sources of this whole field, into Sun, and that is what did it for me. Was talking with Richard, working with him a bit at Sun, and I just realized it was even before he published with Reuben Harris any of his book on transitions. I realized that we had personal change strategies and team development strategies, but nobody was looking at the large system, the complexity of the large system, and there was a huge vacuum in the literature. And so I was like a heat-seeking missile. This is what I want to do. And so had the opportunity at Sun to run a massive transformation of the oil and gas organization. And it was more, I had a lot of guts to do that because we didn't have a methodology. So it was very intuitive, but everything that we did worked and was successful. And then I ultimately wrote about it. And that was the very beginning of what is now the Change Leaders Roadmap, our whole methodology. So that's kind of the story into this. Always, I laugh sometimes because large system organizational change really, really near and dear to me. And then anytime change happens in my life, I say, I hate change. But it's my whole life. So the one other thing I'll add there is, so I had very much the experience and the proven the methodology of what is now the Change Leaders Roadmap methodology. But what was missing at the very beginning for me was more of the human dynamic, getting to the culture, relationships, mindset. I knew it was needed, but I didn't feel like I had mastery. And then at the second symposium on organization transformation, which I led, Dean Anderson was a participant there, and we connected around his work around optimal performance, human performance, mindset, and consciousness development, and realized that that was the other side of the methodology, the whole deep human side, as well as the whole organizational side. And as as Spirit would have it, we merged our work, we merged our lives, we got married, and it just carries on from there. We've developed our system together. So that was really, that's kind of the pathway to getting here.
So you lead organization to transformation and change, but you didn't like to change. You hate to change. Linda, I really love the courage when you leading when you join the architect training, right? The training from the architect team, and then you talk to the trainer, the facilitator back then, that he did not have what it take, not like he got disconnected with the team. And I reckon back then you was very like starting everything. So we you were young at heart, but then you brave enough to come to him, somebody that very experienced in training in the marketing field, right? And tell him he's not connecting his audience. What did you do that? Why did you do that back then?
It's a great question, huh? My responsibility in my job for the American Institute of Architects was the quality of the training in our continuing education curriculum. And so clearly that was, he was failing. And it was just in the first couple of hours of a 2-day training. And when I pulled him aside and I said, everybody's like blank face. This is really important work, and you have a lot to share. So I felt like it was my responsibility. I have to say, at the time, there were so many things that I did that I didn't automatically have the experience for, but I just felt the rightness of doing it. And so I spoke up. And you mentioned courage. It was from that time on, through all of the organization transformation, the emergence of that whole field, and I'm honored to be one of the midwives of that field. We were there at the very beginning of creating that field. And it was a time of making stuff up, trying it out, seeing what worked. It was very enlivening. We had a lot of fun. Just like, it was the same of how organization transformation got named and emerged and got named. It was figuring out something's missing here. What do we need to do?
Mm.
And I will share with you a major wiring that I have is to see what's missing, to
Mm.
see what's needed, to see what will complete the picture, the process, whatever is needed. That's a core competency of mine.
Mm.
And so it was the same with the birth of organization transformation. It's everybody got together. It was an OD conference and a regional conference, and we got together and said, something's not working and this new kind of change, and we don't exactly know. We put together all of our thinking and realized it wasn't, you know, defreeze, change, refreeze kind of thing.
Mm.
It was much, much more complex than that, especially at the large system level. Left that conference, so we dubbed it, it's a transformation. It's not a development, it's not transitional, which was Richard Beckhart's work and Reuben Harris, transitional change. It was something else. And I left that conference and I wrote the seminal piece on the three types of change, defining transformation. Because I thought it was just so essential. People were calling everything transformation, which was not the case.
Mm.
We needed to clearly understand the definition at an organizational or large systems level. And so, again, it was a missing piece, and it was something that I thought I had clarity about and understood. And so it was just a matter of go for it. Yeah, and I can't begin to tell you how many times from there, and also Dean and myself, we try things out in reality in our client systems to see what works and what doesn't work, what's needed, what's missing, and then put it together, figure out how it fits with, you know, our whole system of transformation. And so it's been an evolution for decades,
Mm.
figuring out what do we need, what do we need, what do we need, and being attracted to that what works, how do we do this.
Mm.
And so it was very important to us. And one of the things I still feel really strongly about is how many people talk about change, talk about transformation, or own a piece of the pie. And Dean and I have been committed to the pie and making sure all the pieces are there. And if something's missing, what else has to be added? And so we have been always looking at what do we need to do to be really conscious change leaders, strategic change consultants? What do we really need to know, do, be in order to succeed at that? Because Lord knows the world needs us.
Wow.
The world needs us.
Wow. Thanks a lot. And absolutely, the world needs you because change is the only thing that constantly change, right? So if we're not equipped to
Yes.
the know, the do, the be, then we're gonna be left outside, of the movement of change. So Linda, allow me to travel time with you. So we're gonna travel time together, all right? So you told me that
Yes.
your sister found your poet named Transition when you was at seventh grade, right? So it means that by then you already have an idea, a lot of idea about things that need to be changed already. But allow me to bring you all the way further back in there. So to look back in your memory a little bit, all right? When I
Mhm.
was young, I wanted to become an astronaut. So I want to travel, space and stuff. But life didn't give me any chance close to this. Except I've been to, like to the America and buy some sticky note and stuff about from the NASA. So I'm proud. So when you were young, Linda, what was your dream? The biggest dream that you had when you was young, though?
Interesting idea about dream. So I was the youngest of three in my family, and both my sister and brother had very, very strong personalities in their own life issues. And my family was, as much as we were all loving, it was also a challenging family to be in. And so I, I felt different than my family.
Mm.
I felt I was very sensitive. My mom was always trying to get me to not be so sensitive. Um, and it was very important for me to try and be as accurate to my own truth as possible.
Mm.
And that was not acceptable in my family.
Oh.
And so, there was a lot of Linda's into this truth and honesty crap. And that was very challenging for me. So I knew early on that I wanted to do work in the world that had depth. And
Ah.
that was as much formation as I could get. It's like being able to tune in to spirit, to emotion, to what people wanted in their lives. And so if I were to put the first kind of formation of that, it was always to help people do what they wanted to do in their lives, to support, help facilitate others to put all the pieces together that were necessary for them to fulfill whatever it was their own goals were, but to do it from the inside out.
Ah.
So that was as close as I could get. I spent an enormous amount of my childhood outdoors alone. We had a large meadow in the back of our house and a stream running through it, and gardens on the side. And I lived outside because I felt in tune with nature as opposed to the conflict of family relationships in the house.
Ah.
And so that was very important to me. And it's one reason why I live on a huge ranch looking at the mountains and have gardens and growing spaces. I'm still very, very in tune with nature. And what it enables in me is, um, I guess, clarity and truth and authenticity and beauty.
Mm.
So that's, I think, a really important thing for me. I mean, I'm really aligned with beauty, which comes in lots of forms, nature, but also the beauty of a successful piece of work is beautiful.
So Linda, you born in the family of three, and you became an outstanding out of the rest. Did it give you any trouble when you were young, or being different?
What? Oh, yes. Well, in my family, it was very challenging. Still is. Um, but yeah, I think part of it was trusting that if I was true to myself, it didn't matter how my family held me.
Mm.
I didn't need to turn to my family. And I do want to say I was very close with my dad.
Oh.
He passed in 2006. My mom is 99, and I talk with her every day. So I had good relationships with my mom and my dad, more challenging with my brother and sister. And it was a matter of, let me say this, I moved away from the family. They still live, relatively close. They can drive to each other. Not so with me. I moved away very quickly. And it was my way of being more of who I am as opposed to having to deal with not being understood
Mm.
or appreciated in the family.
Mm. Well,
So yeah, it was challenging.
wow. Was that something that because was because being different when you were young that leading you to see there's a lot of things not working properly, and that leading to the inside of you, you want to create some change, and from there you learn about change and you help people to change. Was that some sort of motivation to you at the beginning?
Interesting, huh? It's interesting to see what was the motivation. I think
Ah.
You're on to something that, energetically, when things aren't working well, I'm out of sorts. And so clearly that was true of my upbringing, that it was not a peaceful, supportive time. Um, in the family dynamic itself. And
Mm.
so I think the degree of discomfort of that had me pursue how do you put all the pieces together so they're beautiful, so they work, so
Mm.
it all fits together. I'll mention another individual who was influential in my approach to looking at the world and to consulting to change was Robert Fritz, who wrote The Path of Least Resistance. And what I learned from Robert was called structural consulting. And what that was about was um, looking at everything that's in place and
Mm.
seeing what's missing and seeing what's needed for it to regain its flow, regain its balance, or move towards what it is it wants to create. And the codification of that skill set, which matched my wiring, is because I was able to see what's missing. It
Mm.
just formulated it in my mind, and so attributing it to my youth where things were out of sorts, I definitely think that was a motivation to say if I could put things into balance, which is really true in my family, my own family now with Dean and our daughter Tara. It's really important that we work well together.
Mm.
We are good with each other. Um, and I do think that that was a source of it. I never put that together before, but I think that's the source. That was the source of it.
Mm. Linda, every time you mention about change and transformation, you also mention a word beautiful in there. And then to many people, change is scary, transformation is messy. And then you say it differently. You say, how to do it beautifully in there. Tell us what you mean by that, would you?
Yeah, yeah, that's great. So I can't remember who it was, but someone said that his belief was that everybody had background music in their lives, everybody.
Mm.
And so being able to understand what is playing in the background all the time is important to understanding yourself. And for me, when I tuned in, my background music is beauty.
Ah.
I am always, we hike in the mountains and whatever it is that I'm doing, even going out to the garden is I take in what's beautiful. And it applies in my work. When something works, it's beautiful. Looking at patterns, looking at textures, looking at colors, um, looking at getting the pieces to fit, energetic fit. To me, my attribution is that it's beautiful. The other thing I'll mention to you is in Richard Beckhart's early years, he was uh, trained in drama. And it was one of the things that he and I connected on because um, I had done drama in my college days, and so attributing to organizational change that it's all a drama. There are characters, there's a storyline, there's the director, there's the props, all this stuff. It's that too was putting together a drama that worked. That's beautiful.
Mm.
And so orchestrating that as well, I think is important. And um, I think that if I can't find the beauty in something, especially at this age, it's not for me.
Mm.
It's not for me. And I have pulled out of projects because I couldn't get the pieces in place to have it work. And I've done everything in my power to do so.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, no, that's bad work. That's not for me to do. I'm not going to spend my life energy doing that. And so I've said no a number of times to major work. This is absolutely not set up for success. So I can't do that.
Wow. Wow. Because your heart not allowing you to do the works that not gonna lead into the happy success, right?
Right.
Hey, Linda,
Right. It's
how
true.
beautiful. Tell, Linda, I have a lot of executive friends. And by the time they are retired, there's common things that they regret, throughout their career, and somehow they pick me to share because I don't. I'm normally these kind of people they don't share a lot of feelings, but somehow they share with me and hi, regret this, regret that, and out of the blue. But then one thing I found in common is they always wanted to start their own company when they were younger, right? And so that they can bring the youth, the energy, the experience, and do something differently and create something different in their ways. But it's either the teams, either the comfortability that hold them back, from whatever the corporate gave them, so they could not walk away, out of that comfortability. You were one leading the organizations in the executive role also, but then you decided to co-found in your company and get out of the comfortability yourself and then get into the
Yes.
one you
Yes.
were. Why did you do that 35 years ago?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great question. I love it. So, when I completed a 2-year special assignment at Sun Petroleum Products Company with that massive transformation and figured out ultimately a model for how to have that happen, because all of that was just intuitive. I was honored by Sun's executives for the work that I had done.
Mm.
And but I realized, and they said, so now we want you to be director of human resources, and we're going to start you in compensation. And knowing you're in human resources is nothing against human resources, but working in compensation for me was death.
Mm.
It was like, oh my God, there's no, after doing all of this and all the complexity and all this, it's like, no. And so that was a part of the motivation. No, that's not what I want to do. And I spoke at an organization development conference about what we had done at Sun for this major transformation that worked so well. And the energy that I got back from sharing what we did and the clarity that we created, that was it. It was like, oh my, I mean, this has widespread value. So at the time, I started Linda S. Ackerman Incorporated. It was long before I met Dean. And I'll never forget. So my mom and dad had their own businesses, and I'll never forget having the conversation with my dad about I want to start my own business, and him saying, well, I think it's a nice endeavor, but as soon as you get married, you'll have kids and you won't need to work. It's like, I think I have a different path for myself. It's not that I don't want to get married and have kids, but I want to have my own business. And I want to be in charge. And so I don't want to just be the wife. Anyway, so that was kind of transformative for him. And I laugh at this joke. I don't drink, never did drink, but he handed me a glass of whiskey and he said, congratulations, here's to start your own business. And it's like suddenly treating me like the son or something, I'm not sure. But, and then he became totally supportive. So I had adequate contacts with the people that I had worked with at Sun to at least get off and running with my work. And the first year was a lot less, but the second year things mushroomed. And everybody always said, if you can get through 2 years in your own business, then typically you're doing okay.
Mm.
And so, that was in 81, I believe, and then I met Dean in 86. So I did that, for that period of time, and then Dean and I joined forces and created Being First in 88. Uh, so by then, it was clear I had a good business, he had a good business. I was writing books, he was doing his optimal trainings, and anyway, I never wanted to work again for anybody else. I wanted to be able to do my own thing.
Mm. And you mentioned a word that I really love also is the word see, like observe, right? Out of the complexity, and then you observe, you see things in the complexity, what works and what yet working, and stuff like that. So, and then I look at people around us. We all have eyes, we all can see, but not a lot of people can be able to capture what matters.
Yes,
So, Linda,
yes,
teach us how you see things that matter, though.
yeah. That's you ask beautiful questions. So, again, I think from a very, very, very early age, I was um, perceptive, and I could see, relationships and see energy. I remember in ninth grade, my parents sent me to camp, and so was with a number of other ninth grade girls in our bunk, and they were into all kinds of tricks and shenanigans and whatnot, and it just wasn't me. I was, the counselor said, "You're so serious." But there was a serious part of me because none of that was anything that added value to my life. It wasn't important to me. And I think it was because I could, what mattered to me was seeing that things work together, people support each other, there's love, there's connection, there's balance. I've always been wired that way since forever.
Mm.
And so I think I'm always perceiving through that set of lenses. It's like what's the quality, the texture of a relationship, of an emotion, um, of action that's required. It's not just the ethereal. It's really, how do we take action? I'm very action oriented. What's the right action to have this work together? And so, the other thing I'll mention to you, Ha, is that I'm very aware, especially at this period of my life. I think it's been growing for decades. By the way, I just turned 72 on Monday, and so that's a that's a big number. And what I'm realizing is that I have an internal intuitive voice that's always present if I can be quiet enough to listen. And that intuitive voice can find the lost keys, can, remember what to buy when I'm in the store. It's there. There's a guide I have inside of me if I'm quiet enough to listen and then pay attention to it. So I think that's always been present for me, and I'm developing more and more capability. And it's very true in my work. There are times when I'm working with an executive, a CEO, or whatever, and they have some kind of an issue with their transformation, and I'm in a coaching role. And so I'm sharing what I call change strategy coaching, things that they need to do strategically to have things work better in what they're doing. And there are some times when I leave those conversations and say, how in the world did I know that?
Mm.
How in the world did I know that that's what I should be sharing?
Mm.
And it's some people will say the channeling of, it's the allowing that intuitive voice to come through because it's tuned to what's highest, it's tuned to what's right, it's
Mm.
tuned to what's needed. Um, and
Right.
so I'm giving more and more space to that in my life as
Mm.
I both work and just live my life.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that, Linda. The intuitive voice, that's important, and it also haunted me for a very, very long time. And I'll share with you the stories. But I was very lucky working with directly with the CEO for a company called Chesterfield. It's a very big home health home care in Seattle, and I was leading the change there, and because of the achievement we got, so I was promoted to oversee the whole operations. So we are about 50 million US, and by the time I worked there for 4 years before I left to Vietnam, we make it about 300 million US, right? But then there was a lot of no, right now, after years, I saw I make a lot of stupid decisions, right? And earlier you mentioned about the human dynamics in the transformation. That part I totally left out. Okay, and that was the thing that made me regret, because um, we look at the business grow for different office versus the challenge in each office had, right? And then I came to make decision to stop the operation in one office and focus resource in other offices. Pretty easy, just because of the number we can make a number elsewhere. And I forgot totally about the people impacted by that decision of mine. And now, like 14 years after that decision, from time to time I'm still dream about that. And then a lot of time when I was sitting quietly, I asked myself this question, if I make a different decision, what would happen? And if I had all the knowledge that, all the advices to make better decision, what else could I make that decisions? So, so when you mentioned about the dynamic and listen to your intuitive, sometimes,
Yeah.
I was afraid of listening to this. So you've been able to listen to the intuitive and got and had it teach you great lessons and guide you in a great ways.
Yes.
Can you teach me and the people out there how to build a good system so that our intuitive voices can guide us in a good direction, Linda?
Yeah. Wow. My sense is it starts with us personally in terms
Mm,
of how quiet we can be inside of ourselves.
mm,
Some people meditate. I meditate not as often as I would like, but I also have. We teach a lot of breathing techniques because breath is the fastest way to center. And so sometimes it's one breath that allows that quiet to show up in me. It's also practicing over decades the distinction between the voice of my ego,
mm,
which is kind of clutchy, self protective, you better, judgmental, and the voice of my higher self, my being, which is that intuitive voice that gives me genuine guidance. And so it's practicing the distinction between those two,
mm.
um, and um, and learning them over time. And so a lot of it is trial and error to be able to refine that because it's decades. That voice has always been in me. I didn't always listen to it. I didn't even always recognize that it was there. And so a part of my own growth has been to determine how to get out of the way so
Mm,
that that voice can provide more guidance when I need it, which isn't always, but when I need it,
mm,
it will be there.
mm.
Um, so part of it is practice. Part of it is also framing the question or the need that you're looking to get guidance for. And so the framing also has to be done with balance. It can't be frenetic. It can't be, if I'm attached or afraid, that is noise in the system that doesn't allow the space. It's not like you have to sit and meditate in order to get that intuitive voice. It can happen. It does happen, in life, in a moment. I'm looking for my glasses. Walking through the house looking for my glasses. Oh, that's where they are. It just can happen. But that's after it's been refined a bit. And so part of it for me, I think you sense this in yourself, is knowing, I think we all have access to that voice. It's a matter of strengthening our ability to listen, to perceive, to receive. That's another really important word, is developing our ability to receive. Yeah, as opposed to do, I have to take action, I have to speak. How often are you silent so that you can receive, and silent in your head as well, which is what a lot of people meditate for, is to bring silence. Wow. So I think that's an important practice as well. And then it's trial and error. And one of the most important things is not be attached, because attachment is all ego, and that too will get in the way. And so for trial and error, I thought my glasses should be over here and they're not. Darn, that's just noise. That's just going to get in the way. And so being able to be accepting of your skill development while you're learning to fine tune it. I'm still fine tuning it. I'm just it's a lot more accessible to me now at this period of my life than it ever has been.
Wow. Thanks, Linda, for sharing that. So we need to quiet and learning and learn the ability to receive, right? So receive, yes, that we can fine tune, yes, ourselves. Linda, you've been in the space for change and transformation and change leader for many years, right? And I think the leadership changing these 3 years, significantly different. And if what do you see our leaders need to change so that they can leading successfully moving forward, Linda?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll share with you, for a period of time after 9/11, leadership changed because of the connection to pain, fear, compassion, support. And so but it then faded and went back to more standard, normal leadership. And here with COVID, with people now working more at home and people being more empowered to say, I'm not going back to the office, all the people leaving their positions, which is a massive movement, people realizing they wanted to live their lives differently. So for me now, leadership needs greater balance to attune to what their people need, not just what their customers or the stock market is requiring of them for their bottom line. And so it's a balancing act. It's not one or the other, but it's moving more in the space as you described, how, realizing you led a transformation without the human side. I did the same in my early days and realized, no, that's never going to work and to sustain itself. So I think leaders need more self-awareness. Our whole approach to what we teach now is conscious change leadership. We moved from project management to change leadership. That was an important move. And conscious change leadership, which is also another paradigm. And what that means is leaders building their own consciousness. Their own sensitivity, their own self-awareness, recognizing that their mindset drives the impact they have in the world. So what is in that mindset? and is it able to deliver what the future is asking of them and their people and their organization. So a lot of self-reflection, a lot of self-awareness, and the ability to understand how to develop themselves and how to course correct and how to be more vulnerable and human. And I'm not talking about touchy-feely, touchy-feely. There's the most powerful moments in our experience have been CEOs that have said, I get it. My way of being is the problem. I realize I need to do this differently. And wow, what an incredibly powerful admission to their people, being able to do that. One of the things that we teach, Dean, is an extraordinary world-class master at this, is vertical leadership development. I'm not sure if you're aware of that whole movement. It is absolutely the cutting edge of leadership development. And just very simply is, our development as human beings doesn't stop at the end of adolescence. We continue to develop. So there are a series of additional stages that adults go through as they develop. And the research, there are about 4 researchers worldwide that have basically correlated the truth of this. And so vertical leadership development is now kind of, I can't say it's taking leadership development by storm, but the courageous few that understand what it's about are beginning to build it into their executive development programs. Because about 85% of leaders today are absolutely in over their heads because they haven't developed themselves to be able to deal with the complexities of the problems that we now face, because the world is so radically different. But leaders haven't developed past certain stages. And so a lot of what we're attempting to do with conscious change leadership is support leaders, one, to understand where they're at and what their wiring is, and then how to begin to move up to higher levels of consciousness, of development, so that they can take on those complex problems in a centered way and be able to solve them.
Wow.
So that's a critical piece for leaders today, is where am I at, and what's possible if I continue to develop myself in these particular ways.
Wow. So they call vertical leadership development. I'll research about
Yes.
that. Linda, but
Yes.
I have this curious question, and you are the first one I'm gonna ask about this. Okay. I have the belief that there's nothing new under the sun. So everything that we are facing, challenging, it's just a different context. All right. So the pandemic, we had pandemics in the past. We have a lot of up and down in business cycle in the past. A lot of challenges, right? And then but pupil center, we've been knowing about that for a very long time, not just now. We know about vulnerability also, like self-love. Vulnerability has also been there for a long time, not just now. We know that, take care for the pupil so that they take care for the business, very long time, but not just now. And an organization leaders, they spend a lot of money using consulting firm, to coming in and advise them a lot of things so that they can lead the organization where people really at the heart of the center of the operations, right? And but it seems to me that our response as leader was very retroactive, so it's not proactive. And so now the employee did the change, then we react to it. So we're never in the position of leading as a leader. So where can we help the leader to really see the change in advance and creating it, even not waiting for it to something to happen then fixing it? Would you advise me on that?
It's a fabulous question, and it's a direct reflection of a limited stage of development.
Oh.
It's a direct reflection. And so you say, we have all of these things and we've done them before, but we haven't gone beyond, we haven't actually altered things, is because, a part of our mission is to help leaders see what they don't see.
Ah.
And so your description there is really helpful for leaders to say, what is it I'm not seeing that would allow me to be more proactive? Is it I'm afraid? Is it I'm the leader, so I'm supposed to have the answer? Is it we've never done this before, so there's no proof for it? Show me that it's been done before. All of those mindsets are of the what's called the expert level of development. And so, we're kind of caught in our own wiring in that way. And because the next stages of development are wider open, they all have their strengths and they all have their underbellies. So let me say that. That's important to know. But awareness of there are possibilities, taking in more diversity is a critical issue. We've done what we've done because it worked when it worked, and so we don't need to do it again, or we've already done that and it didn't work. It just all of those are limiting mindsets to what's possible. And so taking the blinders off, listening to diverse points of view, being more synergistic, trying things out, supporting innovation, but innovation outside the box. That's what's important. I mean, so many people are into, innovation or, unique ways of looking at things, disrupting the status quo kinds of things. Those are important precursors to the possibility of a breakthrough. So we've framed all of our work around achieving breakthrough. What does it take? So what you're asking is, how do we set the conditions in place for breakthrough to occur of something we've never done before, or that's absolutely possible, or we don't know if it's possible, but we're willing to try it because nothing else has gotten us beyond this point. And so it is all a function of leadership development, leadership awareness of where they're at, what their current wiring is about, and how to take on the dynamics, how to even name the complexities of the challenges that they're facing. So that's a big part of it, is what are all of the dynamics we're currently facing, whether it's between stakeholders who are working in virtual settings, and the change in economy, and the change in politics, and the change in technology. What are all the things that we're dealing with, and how could we begin to step back and look at the complexity and look at the possibilities, and collectively, with diverse points of view, see that something different can emerge. That takes a lot of guts and patience for leaders who are typically fast on the mark. Give me the answer. We don't have time for this. It really needs to create a spaciousness so that breakthrough can actually be discovered and then tried out.
But Linda, another dilemma that we have is leaders don't have a lot of time. Also, the life cycle for CEOs now seems to be shortened and shortened, and
Yes.
and the patience from the board and the shareholders is not not really patient for a long lasting things to
Yes.
happen. And so
Yes.
so if we want to do that change from the leadership alone, is not going to be enough. It has to have more to that one, right? So where can we find voices that can gonna be able to help leaders so that they have the support they need to make that lasting change like that, Linda?
Yeah. The struggle with time and the struggle with burden is a core, they're realities of how the CEO position is currently perceived. And so knowing that how we deal with time is a mindset issue. It's a wiring issue. How much control do we allow time to take of us versus us controlling time? And so, again, I'm talking about some courageous moves here. for CEOs to redefine what they're in charge of versus what they can delegate to others to support them in. Some of it's about letting go of control so that they can, in fact, delegate. But it's also collective leadership development. So it's not just the CEO, it's because all the people around them are also scurrying like, hamsters, run, 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 run. And the same with boards, what boards are expecting. So some of it is reflecting on what are the baseline requirements and how much of that is necessary now versus what we're faced with creating in the future. And so I am supportive of identifying all the dynamics that are at play, and then also being able to step back and say, can we see this differently? Can we see this differently? Can we wire ourselves differently? There are also examples of CEOs that have set up very supportive, empowering, synergistic, creative conditions around them. And they have, it's a lot healthier environment. It's a lot healthier environment. And so part of it for me is to look at the context and the framing of the CEO job, and when one takes it on, what's being asked of them, and is that actually necessary? Do we have to be that pressured all the time? That's a question I would ask. And how do we unwire some of that?
And I think that
I was just going to say, none of these answers are simple answers. None of them is a quick silver bullet.
I think that the thanks for sharing that. I think the CEO has a lot more on his stakes for not only leading the organization but also persuade the board and the stakeholder for a different future of the organization where to break, like you say, redefine what they are doing, what else they can be doing and stuff like that. So build a new future. And Linda, I have two last questions for you. I have so much that I've been learning from you today. Thanks a lot. And one of the things that my wife and I have been doing is to try to find the secret ways that we can help people to improve their ability to think. And because we both believe that our ability to think these days is diminishing, is not increasing at all. So every chance that we talk to great mind like you are a very very deep thinker, and you help organize, you help leader to think differently, to do things differently also. So we want to ask you this question, Linda. How have you been helping yourself to build that ability to think?
Yeah, it's a great question. The first thing I'll share with you is that there are periods of time where, our organization is called Being First, in support of conscious change leadership, the being part. It's not just about being number one, it's about the being, your way of being that you bring. And there have been periods of time where I have jokingly, even with clients, said, no, we need to rename the name of the company to Doing First. The times when we just get so busy and so, so time pressured, and clients have this need, and producing new trainings have this need, and all of that. Dean and I both get up early in the morning to have quiet. And, whether it's for meditation purposes, exercise purposes, taking care of the animals, it's a very, very important time. And it's a precursor to thinking. So for myself, I have a pattern where I typically wake up about 45 minutes before I have to get out of bed. There are exceptions to that, I got to catch a plane or whatever, but usually I give myself time. And that time for me, when I'm, semi-lucid, I'm not asleep, but I'm pondering things, that's a very important time for me to think.
Mm.
And it's also a very important time for that intuitive voice to show up with guidance. And so it's really creating the conditions where quiet thought can occur.
Mm.
So, if I'm tuned in and I'm listening throughout the day, sometimes deep thoughts will show up. But for the most part, it's really crafting that space in my life so that I can actually reflect on things. Now, I will also share that having conversations with like-minded people, whether it's Dean or a few other friends, synergy occurs in conversation for me frequently. And so I can have breakthrough in my thinking because I'm talking about it with others. And so that's also another option. That's true, the extrovert side of me, although I'm more and more introverted the older I get. But that allows that synergy to occur in conversation with others, assuming those others are also deep thinkers.
So conversation with like-minded people is a way, and have quiet and then schedule time in the day for you to allow the thinking
Yes.
to circulate. Yes, thanks for sharing that. I'm surprised that you are extrovert personality. I always thought of you as an introvert person, Linda.
It's true. I think early on, I kind of forced myself to be social, but never comfortably. And so because I like talking with people about concepts, that's the slice of me that's extroverted, as opposed to it just happens when I'm thinking by myself. But absolutely, I'm more and more introverted. And Dean and I frequently will stand back and say, how did we get through 2.5 years of isolation with COVID? We never saw our friends. We hardly talked to them. We were so happy. It was so productive. It was so wonderful. And I was like, because we're both introverts.
See, like for many years now, you guys realize you guys are introvert.
Yes,
You know,
yes.
or maybe
Yeah.
or maybe life transform us and we transform through life also, and making the best out of life ourselves. So I don't know. But Linda, I will get to the last question for the conversation today. All right. And
Yes.
I knew that you were different when you were young, and then have a lot of challenges at home, and you fall into the love for helping organization and people to change, transform. You even create, the change leaders roadmap for the nine step, the nine phrase of model of change, right? We didn't have time to touch on that part, but we can talk to that about that at a later time. I want to know a little bit about the future. Okay, is there anything that you and Dean are working on that exciting, and you want to share with me and the audience so we can celebrate with you in advance?
Thank you. Dean and I have been having this conversation recently. It's a really important one given where we are in our lives. So, what's most important to us is handing off our work and teaching others to carry it forward beyond us.
Oh.
And so that's really critical. So there's the whole change consulting side of the house, the whole consciousness development side of the house. And so we're actively seeking people who want to be developed in those capabilities and then crafting the ways to do that. I'm going to be launching a podcast.
No.
So, um, in the probably early next year called Ask Dr. Change, so that people can be asking questions about, you know, the variety of things that we talked about today, plus all of their work and projects that they're doing, for some guidance. And so that's it. We're looking for ways, and I will continue to teach. So not so much taking on consulting projects. Currently, we're supporting police transformation here in the States because that's such a critical social um, uh, driver of our society. So we're involved with police forces at this point, but not taking on other client work, other than anything that's deeply values driven, like police transformation, which is extraordinarily powerful work to do right now. So it's all about, the future for us is all about speaking our voice, sharing what's true. Dean is writing several books. We're going to continue to teach online. Thank you, COVID, for that, putting our work on online, and teaching others to carry this work forward. That's the most important thing for us is, we don't intend to retire, we intend to teach.
Wow.
And so that's what's important. I want other people to carry forward with the transformation work, the change leaders roadmap work. I want other people to be skilled and talented in being able to do this work in their lives, in your lives, beyond us.
Wow. Thanks a lot for all of that amazing things that you guys have been doing, and then you guys are about to be doing. And Linda, say hello to Dean for me, please. Uh, I want all. I wish all the best support, resource, health, and goodness is gonna come to you too, and so that you guys can continue to do amazing thing in the world, create and like positive change, so that so that organization can create, can be transformed in the positive way for people to go in home and having dining dinner, right, with their family members, talk
Yes,
about greatness at
yes,
work, and then the next generation when they go to work, they're embedded with amazing news, good things, and so that's hope for them going to the work with positivity, and then in happiness we can
yes.
always create amazing things together. So thanks for doing that. Please keep doing that.
Thank you, Han. Thank you for this. Your questions have been so enlightening and enlivening for me to go into these places inside myself. So I so appreciate your interview skills, your questioning in these very, very subtle, powerful ways. So I appreciate you doing this very, very much. And I wish the same for you. All the best for you and your work going forward.
Well, thank you very, very, very much, Linda. Okay. If ever you and Dean travel to this part of the world, yeah, you let us know. We are here. You have new family, new friends in Vietnam that
Thank
gonna be so
you.
be happy welcoming you. Okay.
Thank you so much. That's beautiful. And the same if you come to the Colorado mountains.
Yep. Yeah, I definitely will. I will come to Seattle in February of next year to visit my daughters, and if time allows, I would love to go to visit my friend in Denver, and then we see how far it is to your place. I would love to
Ah,
invite you and Dean for a cup of coffee together.
thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
you very
Take
much.
care.
You take care.
All right.